Neda Ibrahim reporting there from Ramallah in the occupied West Bank. I'm just being told that the U.S. President, Donald Trump, has now said that Ali Khamenei, Iran's supreme leader, is indeed dead. This assessment coming from the President of the United States. I'm going to take this now to Ali Hashem and James Bays. This is the information we have right now, that the U.S. President is saying, okay, moments ago when we started this show, the quote from Donald Trump was, I believe that that is accurate, that being an Israeli assessment of Khamenei's death. What Trump is now saying is different. He has upgraded his assessment to Khamenei is now dead. Ali Hashem. Ali Khamenei has run Iran for almost 4 decades. He is the embodiment of the Islamic Revolution. He is the second supreme leader that Iran has ever had. We don't know for sure. Now, let's assume this is true, okay? We don't know for sure what happens in Iran once Ali Khamenei is confirmed dead.
Well, whenever Iran is going to announce, just in case this is true, because till the moment, as we were saying, the Iranian sources are denying that the supreme leader has been killed. And now we just saw a tweet on his account on Twitter, on X. Now, just in case this is confirmed, immediately the system is going to move the power to a council of 3, the president, the head of the judiciary, and a member of the Guardian Council. This is according to the Iranian constitution. Then the assembly of experts, in case they were able to convene, will have to elect a new supreme leader.
But this is all, if that's how the system is designed to work.
Yes.
But we don't know. The point I'm making is that the system is now being tested, perhaps like never before. We don't know whether those who are supposed to elect a successor to Khamenei will be able to convene. We don't know whether the system will be able to. You know what I'm going to do? As is so often the case now, this information comes on Donald Trump's social media accounts. So this is what he posted 2 minutes ago on Truth Social. Khamenei, all of this are direct quotes, it's on your screens. Khamenei, one of the most evil people in history, is dead. This is not only justice for the people of Iran, but for all great Americans and those people from many countries throughout the world that have been killed or mutilated by Khamenei and his gang of bloodthirsty thugs. He was unable to avoid our intelligence and highly sophisticated tracking systems, and working closely with Israel, there was not a thing that he or the other leaders that have been killed along with him could do. This is the single greatest chance for the Iranian people to take back their country. We are hearing that many of their IRGC, military and other security and police forces no longer want to fight and are looking for immunity from us. As I said last night, quote, now they can have immunity, later they only get death. This is a long message, so bear with us. Hopefully, Trump continues, hopefully the IRGC and police will peacefully merge with the Iranian patriots and work together as a unit to bring back the country to the greatness that it deserves. That process should soon be starting, in that not only the death of Khamenei, but the country has been in only one day very much destroyed and even obliterated. The heavy and pinpoint bombing, however, will continue uninterrupted throughout the week or as long as necessary to achieve our objective of capital letters, peace throughout the Middle East, and indeed the world, exclamation mark. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. Al Jazeera's Mike Hanna is joining us from Washington, D.C. Mike, this was posted 2 minutes ago. What information did you have just before this came online? What information did you have on your end? What are you hearing from your sources, whether it's the White House, whether it's the State Department, or whether it's the Pentagon?
Well, we had heard President Trump say publicly in an interview a short while ago that he believed that the Ayatollah Khamenei was indeed dead. And he said as well that he believed that a large number of the Iranian leadership had also been killed. But now we've got that full statement on Truth Social, which you just read. So you've got all the details of that particular statement, making very clear that the President of the United States believes that the Ayatollah Khamenei is dead. Also noting at the end of that statement, the comment that the heavy and pinpoint bombing, however, will continue uninterrupted through the week or as long as necessary to achieve our objective. Now, earlier in the day, President Trump was talking about the possibility of these strikes lasting a few days and then returning again should Iran continue its nuclear development program, as the U.S. claims that it has been doing. But in the same interview, he also said that he could last as long as it takes to take over everything. So not very clear in terms of the president's mind whether there is a timeline in this, whether there's an off-ramp to this conflict. But now we see as well the president doubling down in that Truth Social posting, confirming reports that originally originated in Israel that the Ayatollah Khamenei has been killed in these strikes, along with a number of other senior Iranian leaders.
Mike Hanna, thank you very much. I want to take this to James Bays. James, a long statement. What is your first impression of this?
Well, my first impression before this statement, when we had Trump just speaking about this, was perhaps Trump was repeating what he'd been told by the Israelis, and it was the same Israeli chatter and the same one unconfirmed source. But now you've read out that long, very carefully drafted statement. Someone thought about that, someone wrote it carefully. Yes, there's some Trump flourishes in there, but it's a very well prepared statement. That certainly the way that would normally work, and the Trump administration doesn't always work the way that previous administrations have, is that would have gone through the US intelligence community. That would have gone through the CIA. There are a total of 18 different intelligence agencies in the United States. And they would, one would have thought, normally have to have quite a high degree of confidence before putting that out. Because remember the stakes here. President Trump set this as the goal of this operation. He made it clear he wanted to remove the supreme leader. He wanted people to rise up and take over control in Iran. That was the bar he set himself. So if he is wrong about this, then he's going to, it's not going to look very good.
It is 21:46 GMT, and I'm going to remind all our viewers just joining us of what we've found out. Minutes ago, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, posted a long message on his social media, Truth Social, saying that the Supreme Leader of Iran, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, a nemesis of the United States, is now dead. Those are the words of Donald Trump. The message goes something like this: he is dead. This is justice. The words of Donald Trump. This is justice for all the people whom he has hurt. He was unable to avoid our intelligence and our tracking system. And Donald Trump frames this as a chance for Iranians to take back their country. You see the message there on your screen, to take back their country. Donald Trump also says two more crucial things. He is hearing that the IRGC, that is Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps, that are really the military backbone of this system, of the Iranian Islamic Revolution. He's hearing, he says, that the IRGC may no longer want to fight. Remember that Donald Trump this morning, when he declared war on Iran, had said, lay down to addressing the IRGC, and all of Iran's law enforcement and security forces had said, lay down your weapons and you will get immunity. He is saying that that may be happening, his words. And he expresses hope that the police, IRGC, and law enforcement will now side with the Iranian population, all of this again in Donald Trump's framing, and take back their country, but that the U.S. bombing on Iran will very much continue throughout the week. That is the substance of the message by the U.S. president. Your thoughts, Ali?
Well, the statement is clear from the American side, from the Israeli side, very certain. And the amount of certainty that we are seeing from the Israelis and the American gives us indication, very strong indication that this has happened. Till the moment, we don't have a voice from Iran coming out and saying this is not true, at least what we heard from the foreign minister, that the Supreme Leader, as far as he knows, is alive. Then the spokesperson to the foreign ministry also stressed that the Supreme Leader and the President survived the attack. According to sources on the ground I'm talking to, they're saying that the Supreme Leader is alive. Now, over here we have two conflicting accounts, but the amount of certainty...
Shall we tell our viewers this is absolutely to be expected in a situation like this? Like, you absolutely expect in a war like this, one side to say, to claim victory, whatever victory that might be. In this case, it is the killing, according to Donald Trump, of the Iranian Supreme Leader, and the other side to completely deny it. And usually, it takes a few hours, sometimes more, by the way, sometimes
yeah.
days, for the dust to settle and for us to get certainty. This is normal.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's why we cannot come out with a conclusion. What we can is just to report what Trump is saying and what Netanyahu is saying on one side, and on the other side, they're denying. So,
and as somebody who covers Iran, you have many times been in the position where there has been a source or there has been information that Ali Khamenei had been killed, and you know, the question was put to you, and you'd had to exercise caution.
On several occasions, there were reports of Khamenei being dead, but also on other occasions. Now, this is not the occasion of a leader being killed. For example, when Qasem Soleimani was killed, just like
former head of the IRGC,
former head of the Quds Force, and a very influential commander in Iran. In just like a couple of hours, he was announced dead. Now, in 2024, when the president's plane crashed, the helicopter, May 2024, along with the foreign minister, it took them some time to announce, but we were all in the situation to understand that there is something happening because the plane crashed and there's no news. But now, what they are saying till the moment is that he is safe.
Denial, strong denial from the Iranians.
Now, is this because we are in the middle of a war and the Iranian government or the system wants to preserve the morale and all these things? This is another.
I want to go straight to the Iranian capital, see what we can find out from there. Al Jazeera's Tawhid Assadi is in Tehran. Tawhid, on your end, what are you hearing?
Well, on my end, what I'm hearing from different sources is quite contradictory to this very recent strong statement by the U.S. President Donald Trump, who came out with a significant amount of certainty about the death of Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. First, it was the Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi coming out to say that, quote-unquote, as far as he knows, the Iranian Supreme Leader, as well as the President, as well as the Secretary for the National Security Council of the country, Ali Larijani, and the Speaker of the Parliament are all alive. This is what we heard earlier from him. Also, we've got the head of public relations of Supreme Leader's office saying that, following these reports, saying that these are sort of psychological warfare from the enemy. And also Iranian official news agencies such as Tasnim and Mehr News are all saying that Iranian Supreme Leader is firm and steadfast, commanding the battlefield. These are the reports, but added to that is that earlier today, or now I should say yesterday, we witnessed the Pastor neighborhood being targeted several times by this campaign of strikes by the Americans and Israelis. And for our viewers, this is the neighborhood that key important facilities and of course places politically speaking are located, such as the office of the Supreme Leader, as well as the office of Iranian President, as well as two important military universities, and these are critically important, seeing the very recent reports that are coming. And of course, speaking of the official statements, I can say denial is the gist of the matter when it comes to these reports. But previously, back in June, when we had a sort of similar situation following the initiation of the first day of the attacks, we've got very immediate reactions, very immediate confirmations about the deaths of very, very important figures, such as the head of IRGC.
So
and also,
I'm going to have to jump in because I'm seeing the United States ambassador to the United Nations speaking right now in New York.
With a nuclear weapon. As President Trump said last night, for decades, the Iranian regime has willfully destabilized the world. It has killed American forces and citizens, threatened regional allies, and jeopardized the security of international shipping upon which the world depends. Its massive support for violent proxies, declared terrorist organizations, the Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas, and others, has brought bloodshed and disorder across the Middle East for far too long. This is not speculation. We know this to be true, and our men and women have paid for the actions of this regime and the IRGC with their lives. No responsible nation can ignore persistent aggression and violence. The regime in Tehran has led attacks that have cost American lives. Hundreds of U.S. Marines in Lebanon, thousands of troops in Iraq. American hostage after hostage has suffered. Our ships fired upon dozens of times in the Red Sea. Iran has armed and financed militant organizations that undermine lawful governments and destabilize an already fragile region. Iran's continued pursuit of advanced missile capabilities, coupled with its refusal to abandon nuclear ambitions despite diplomatic opportunities, presents a grave and mounting danger. The international community has long affirmed a simple and necessary principle: Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. That principle is not a matter of politics, it's a matter of global security. And to that end, the United States is taking lawful actions. This body, the United States Security Council, has acted repeatedly on this threat. 20 years ago, starting in 2006, Resolution 1696 demanded that Iran suspend all uranium enrichment-related and reprocessing activities, invoking Chapter 7 of the UN Charter and adopting a legally binding resolution. When Iran failed to comply, this council followed with Resolution 1737, imposing mandatory sanctions, including bans on nuclear-related materials and technology, asset freezes on key individuals and entities linked to their nuclear program, and establishing a sanctions committee. Subsequent resolutions, 1747 in the year 2007, expanded arms embargoes and asset freezes. Resolution 1803 in 2008 tightened restrictions on dual-use goods and calling for the inspections of Iranian cargo. Resolution 1835 in 2008 reaffirmed the need for full compliance. And Resolution 1927 in 2010, which was the most comprehensive, banning ballistic missile activities, tightening the conventional arms embargo, targeting the IRGC and shipping lines, and prohibiting new Iranian banking relationships, built a robust multilateral framework to curb Iran's nuclear and missile pursuits. These measures, again, adopted under Chapter 7, represented the world's collective judgment that Iran's actions posed a threat to international peace and security. And despite numerous opportunities for an alternative path, Iran remained defiant. And the Security Council decided on September 19th of last year, 2025, to restore these measures, snap back sanctions, sending a clear message that the world will not acquiesce to threats and half measures, and Tehran would be held to account. On top of these actions by the UN, American diplomacy was attempted repeatedly and in good faith. President Trump, Secretary Rubio, our special envoys, Witkoff and Kushner, were relentlessly dedicated to diplomacy. But diplomacy cannot succeed where there is no genuine willingness to cease aggression, where there is no genuine partner for peace. As President Trump said today, and he spoke directly to the Iranian people, he said, quote, "To the proud, great people of Iran, I saw tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. The entire world has witnessed the regime's wholesale slaughter of innocent civilians. The sad irony is that this same regime will attempt to lecture us today about human rights and the rule of law. Its presence here in this council makes a mockery of this body. But where the UN lacks moral clarity, the United States of America will maintain it. Indiscriminate and unprovoked attacks by the Iranian regime today against our regional partners, Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Qatar, Jordan, and others, reinforce precisely why such actions are necessary. The regime has not only struck military assets, but civilian infrastructure as well. Those who stand with us must know that their security is not negotiable. The safety of our allies is not conditional. It is assured. The bottom line is this, colleagues. Our allies and partners can count on the United States and can count on President Trump. Colleagues, peace is not preserved by appeasing those who threaten it. Peace is preserved through strength in the face of terror. History has taught us that the cost of inaction is far greater than the burden of decisive action. And our president, President Trump, has taken that decisive action today. I thank you.
I thank the representative of the United States for the statement, and I give the floor to the representative of Denmark.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to the UK Presidency for convening the Council for this urgent meeting following the latest developments in the Middle East. I also wish to thank the Secretary General for his statement. Today's developments are deeply concerning and pose the risk of further destabilizing an already volatile situation at a time of heightened tensions in the Middle East. Mr. President, let me reiterate our deep...
It is 22 GMT. You are watching our continuing coverage of the joint Israeli and U.S. strikes on Iran. I'm Cyril Vanier, and here's the very latest. U.S. President Donald Trump says that Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, is dead. In a Truth Social post, Trump said that President Khamenei, one of the most evil people in history, is dead. This is not only justice for the people of Iran, he wrote, but for all great Americans that have been killed or mutilated by Khamenei and his gang. He was unable to avoid our intelligence and highly sophisticated tracking systems, and working closely with Israel, there was not a thing that he or the other leaders that have been killed along with him could do. The heavy and pinpoint bombing, however, will continue uninterrupted throughout the week or as long as necessary to achieve our objective of peace throughout the Middle East and indeed the world. We have a team of correspondents in Washington, D.C., in Tehran, in Ramallah, that's in the occupied West Bank, at the UN headquarters in New York, where that Emergency Security Council meeting was just taking place, and also here in Qatar's capital, Doha. Starting now with Mike Hanna, who's joining us from Washington, D.C. Mike, what are you learning on your end? We are minutes removed from Donald Trump writing and posting on his social media that Ali Khamenei is dead. What are you learning?
Yes, well, earlier, President Trump had made a couple of scattered comments to news media saying that he believed that the feeling that the Ayatollah Khamenei was dead was correct. But in this very carefully drafted statement, it would appear that he is now convinced that that is the case. And I stress again that this is a carefully drafted statement, one that is not just thrown out in a matter of minutes. So it has been worked on by President Trump and his staff. So they would appear to be convinced that this is indeed the case. There's no indication what the source of President Trump's intelligence is. But from that statement, that very lengthy statement, he makes very clear his belief that the Ayatollah is dead, along with a number of other senior Iranian leaders, and also implying that the Revolutionary Guard is about to turn their backs and maybe join those protests which President Trump has been encouraging. Just one other thing. It's important for us and our viewers to note that the Ayatollah Khamenei 25 years ago made a fatwa against production and development of nuclear weapons, declaring it to be haram, that is forbidden. So if indeed the Ayatollah Khamenei has been killed, the one person who was adamantly and publicly, as that fatwa made clear, against the production and development of nuclear weapons is now dead. So we are still awaiting any form of confirmation from the Iranian side on this, but that is what we have from President Trump posting on his social media.
Mike, I'm going to get the perspective from Tehran, find out what Tauhid Asadi knows. Just before I go to Tauhid, though, hold on. Mike Hanna, do you know anything, just very briefly, about a possible press conference or public address to the media or to the nation coming from the White House today, or not at all?
Well, the short answer to that is no, I do not know. But what I can tell you is that the White House has formally set a lid on comments and on photographs. So it would appear that there will be no public statement from the president in the course of the evening.
Okay. This is what we know minutes after 2200 GMT. Mike Hanna, thank you very much. We'll come back to you before long. Let's go to Tawhid, who's in Tehran. So, Tawhid, you heard that. On one side of this story, we have the President of the United States saying that the Supreme Leader of Iran is now dead. What are you hearing and what do you know?
On the other side of the story, we have got this entirety of statements coming from Tehran based on the very gist of the matter that these reports are not true. First, this was the Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi in an interview saying that as far as he knows, the Iranian Supreme Leader, as well as other important officials of the country, such as the President, the head of actually the Secretary of the National Security Council, as well as the Speaker of the Parliament, are all alive. Also, we've got the head of public relations of the Supreme Leader's office saying that this is part of the psychological warfare, quote unquote, by the enemy. And of course, we've got other sources, such as at least 2 members of parliament, saying that these reports are false. And speaking of the news outlets, the official news outlets such as Tasnim, which is closely affiliated with IRGC, and also Mehr News Agency, we've got reports that these actually statements now coming from the U.S. president in a very strong way are not true. But also, on the other hand, yesterday, when the campaign of strikes started by the Americans and Israelis, Pastor neighborhood was one of the areas which targeted. And as I told you earlier, Cyril, it is a very politically sensitive and important actually neighborhood, since it houses the actually office of the Supreme Leader and the office of Iranian President. And I saw a considerable presence of security forces following the initiation of these strikes in the vicinity of that area. This is what we know so far, but still, as Ali was mentioning, this is not going to be the end of it. Of course, we can rest assured that if that happened, it is the reddest red line that the U.S. could have crossed. So there might be really tough repercussions ahead in case that happens. It's going to be a game changer if that happens. But still, we know that, speaking of the mechanisms, basically there is this clear process defined by the Article 111 of the Iranian Constitution, which paves the way for a trajectory. First of all, there is going to be a council of 3 people: the Iranian president, the head of judiciary, and also 1 member of the Guardian Council for a short period of time, taking care of the leadership of the country. And then the assembly of experts, or what we call in Persian Majlis Khebregan, are going to actually have meetings to actually appoint the next leader of the country. But I think it's a little bit early, despite this announcement by the U.S. president, to jump into any definitive conclusion about the fate of Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. As right now, we don't have any official confirmation regarding these reports that are coming from the Israeli and American side.
Yeah, it is 1:35 a.m. where you are, I beg your pardon, Tawhid, so well into the night, and Iranian authorities have been saying it is a full denial that they are giving to Donald Trump's social media post saying that the Supreme Leader is dead. They're saying that is not true. They're saying that Ali Khamenei is in charge of Iran, and he's very much in command at this hour. Tawhid, thank you very much. I'll let you work your sources. U.S. and Israeli strikes that began on Saturday have continued into the night. Iranian media, citing the Red Crescent, say at least 201 people have been killed and more than 700 injured in Iran. Iran has closed its airspace and cut mobile phone services. Tehran retaliated with a series of strikes targeting Israel and U.S. military assets across the Gulf region. And this was the scene earlier in Tel Aviv, where the ambulance service reported more than 20 people have been injured in an Iranian attack. The Israeli military saying air defenses have intercepted dozens of missiles. Nida Ibrahim is joining us from Ramallah in the occupied West Bank. What's the latest where you are, Nida?
Well, as of 20 minutes ago, the Israeli command, the Israeli entity that is responsible for telling Israelis what to do in terms and during these emergencies, have told people they can leave the shelters, but they can stay close to them. But the latest we've heard from the last strike that hit Tel Aviv is that the Israeli ambulance is saying that 21 Israelis have been injured, 16 of them suffered minor injuries, and 2 have suffered critical conditions. Now, Israeli media is talking about one Israeli woman that has been killed as a result of this attack. Of course, this is yet to be confirmed from medical sources, but indeed, this would be, if confirmed, the first death since the operation started in the early hours of Saturday around 8 a.m. local time. We are now after midnight, and while the skies might look calm for now, that's not the situation in the Israeli cities that are bracing themselves for a difficult night. And indeed, since it became darker here, we've noticed the intensity of the Iranian missile increasing, but for now it has been subdued. But again, the Israelis have been bracing themselves for a difficult night, and this news of this latest strike that one rocket at least has hit 2 buildings and the interceptors failed to thwart it is indeed a big deal when it comes to this war, and this would be the first announced rocket that the interceptors have failed to intercept.
Nida Ibrahim reporting from Ramallah in the occupied West Bank. Thank you very much, Nida. Sina Azodi is the director of the Middle East Studies program at George Washington University. And Sina, you're joining us from Washington, D.C. So as we speak, at this very moment, we have one very big claim by the U.S. president that Iran's supreme leader is dead. And we have one very forceful denial by Iran saying that Ali Khamenei is not only alive, but very much in command of the country. Your thoughts?
Well, I think everybody will use the piece of news for their propaganda purposes. Iranian and each side has very strong incentives to make that claim. And unless we see some sort of evidence from the Iranian side, if there is a speech from Khamenei, or if from the Israeli or the American side, they said they have claimed, at least the Israelis have claimed that they've seen a photo of Ayatollah Khamenei's body. Unless there's some evidence released to the public, everything is speculation, and even the Secretary General of the UN has not confirmed it yet. There is a good chance that he might be dead, but again, everything is right now speculations. Everybody makes strong claims, and we would have to wait and see for the evidence to draw conclusions.
What if he is indeed confirmed dead? He has been running Iran and governing Iran for 37 years, and he is the ultimate decider for all of the country's most important issues. What if Donald Trump's social media post turns out to be accurate?
Well, if it is accurate, the Islamic Republic's constitution has procedures for this. That there will be an emergency session of the Assembly of Experts, a body that was designed to appoint the next supreme leader. In the case that that Assembly of Experts, for any reason that does not meet to appoint the next supreme leader, we have to keep in mind that the Islamic Republic in the past year, since the June 2025, has been preparing for this eventuality. And there was a report last year that Ayatollah Khamenei has nominated 3 candidates to succeed him should anything happen to him. So from my perspective, even if the claim by President Trump is accurate, I don't believe that we should expect a regime collapse or a political vacuum at the top, because the Islamic Republic has been preparing itself for this moment.
So both the U.S. and Israel seem to be relying on the idea that they are going to strike at the very top of the Iranian state, which is what they're saying right now that they have done. They're going to do that. and then they're going to rely on an Iranian popular uprising to, in their words, take back their country, right? That is how both Trump and Netanyahu have presented their entire endeavor as relates to Iran. Do you see a popular uprising as a possibility in the next few hours and days?
The footage that I've seen from Tehran is that a lot of people are cheering, a lot of people are happy. We have to keep in mind that Islamic Republic just killed thousands of Iranian people a month ago. So I don't think that he will be missed. But I don't think that air campaigns bring regime changes. We have yet to see people rising up to and coming to the streets to try to bring down the Islamic Republic. For a matter of fact, when bombs start to fall, people tend to take shelter, not any democratic movement. That is my expectation, and this is something that history teaches us. During World War II, this is what was happened in Serbia, in Iraq in 1990s. Air campaigns are effective tool of destruction, but they're not effective tool of regime change or coercion.
What about the claim by Donald Trump just minutes ago in his social media that some members or some parts of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps currently want to stop fighting, have immunity, and essentially, I won't say side with the U.S. because the U.S. president didn't say that, but at least stop fighting the U.S. What about that claim?
I'm not really sure. I have yet to see any evidence that senior commanders of the IRGC or political officials have defected. I have not seen that, but I am sure that some people, even some of the people within the IRGC, perhaps the lower mid-ranking, lower ranks, are dissatisfied with whatever is happening in the country, the economic situation, water crisis, multitude of crises that Iran is facing. But I still believe that the senior commanders are still loyal to the Islamic Republic because they think that if the regime collapses, their safety might be endangered.
So the question remains about the stress test that this all poses for the Iranian state structure, right? You explained to us, as did our correspondent earlier, that there are procedures in place for this. Of course, the Supreme Leader was 86. There have been rumors about his passing previously, and there has been recent reporting that he had named multiple possible successors to prepare for the potential that he either would be completely out of communication or killed, because he knew, as many of us in the region saw coming, that there would be probably a war between the U.S. and Iran. So the system was indeed prepared for appointing a successor. But right now, the system is under immense stress, and it is under continued and relentless bombardment by the U.S. and Israel. And so the question that poses is, can the system survive this stress?
I believe that it will. And my reference is right at the beginning of the Iranian Revolution, when the Islamic Republic came to power, it survived political assassinations. The president, the prime minister, members of the parliament were assassinated. Even there was an attempt on Khamenei's life where he lost mobility in his right hand. At the time where it was fighting a total war with Iraq from 1980 to 1988. So you're talking about a system that was born into a revolution, survived an 8-year of total war, political assassinations, and economic warfare by the United States. So from my point of view, the system is quite resilient, but I will also say that one of the rules of international politics is that anything is possible. We may wake up tomorrow and the Islamic Republic is gone, but I believe that it's quite unlikely because, as I said, the system is quite resilient. And in this case, since June 2025, they've been preparing the system for such an eventuality.
All right, Sina Azodi, thank you very much for joining us on the Al Jazeera NewsHour. Marwan Bashara is Al Jazeera's senior political analyst. And Marwan, you're joining us live from the Qatari capital here in Doha. As we speak, Marwan, we don't know exactly what reality we face. Donald Trump is describing this current moment as one where the Iranian supreme leader is dead, and the Iranians are saying, no, he's not. Where do you see this going forward, given the uncertainty that we're in right now?
There's uncertainty about his death, but there's certainty about his importance in Iran since the revolution. You could say that there is no more important name since 1979 than Ali Khamenei, not only because he himself has ruled in one capacity or another for the past 47 years, but in fact, after being president from sort of 8 years in the 1990s, he became the supreme leader and presided over 6 other presidents. The centrist Rafsanjani, the 3 reformers, if you will, Khatami, Rouhani, and lately Pezeshkian. And he certainly also presided over the 2 more radical ones, and that is Ahmadinejad and Raisi. So you could see the man presided in the beginning and then became the supreme leader that presided over 6 other presidents. So there is no more important character in modern revolutionary Iran than Ali Khamenei. So to speak of his death or of his survival is, of course, key to the future of the revolution and its survival within this war, because it will mean a lot to the psychology of those who are fighting now for the revolution against the United States and Israel.
Marwan, what do you think of this, what sounds like a plan that both Netanyahu and Trump have presented, that they are going to strike some key and strategic targets in Iran, and they're going to continue to do so for a few days, and then they hope, and they're calling on the Iranian people to go and, in their words, take back Iran. What do you think of that entire idea?
Well, I think it's incredibly dangerous and somewhat reckless, and it's, of course, a huge gamble. We already had in the past 20 years, Cyril, 3 attempts at regime change in the Arab and Muslim world. One against in Afghanistan. That was done with the United Nations Security Council resolution, and we've seen the United States kick the Taliban out, create a new government, train the security forces, but of course 20 years later, the Taliban are back in power. So it was a huge fiasco. Then we had, of course, the 2003 Iraq. America got involved for regime change, invasion, occupation, without UN Security Council resolution. It bombed, it invaded, it occupied. It was a huge disaster as well, lost several thousand soldiers, trillions of dollars, and of course, hundreds of thousands of Iraqis died in the process. And then there was Libya. In Libya, there was a UN Security Council resolution, but it wasn't for regime change. It was for responsibility to protect, meaning to protect the Libyan people from Gaddafi, who wanted to kill so many. And then eventually it led to a regime change, not by American interference or European interference on the ground, but by bombing, decapitating, and then telling the Libyan people that they could basically rise against the leader. What happened was an implosion within Libya that continues to suffer divisions and violence, tribal politics, and so on and so forth ever since. So I think the idea here in Iran will probably resemble most what Obama did in Libya, which is bomb, 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 and then expect the Iranians to change the system. Now, there's one other example that tells you how reckless this was, and that was in 1991, after the United States bombed the hell out of Iraq in order to undermine Saddam Hussein. It asked the Iraqis to revolt against the Saddam Hussein, and many, especially the Shiites and the Kurds, revolted against Iraq. But America abandoned them in the hands of Saddam Hussein, who bombed, and killed countless people amongst them back in the 1990s. So the idea to say to people rise against a regime that remains to be internally strong in a security level without really any responsibility whatsoever, that means this could lead to a civil war in the country. There's a gamble, it's quite reckless, and it could be quite tragic moving forward.
Marwan, how do you assess day one of this military campaign, this attack against Iran by the U.S. and Israel?
Well, of course, it was a shock, but hardly a surprise, right? It was a shock because the negotiations were going well. There was a breakthrough of some sort, at least that's what the Omani mediator said, that the Iranians presented, economic, energy, and nuclear proposals that were actually new. But the Americans decided to answer that with a war. So clearly it wasn't because of breakdown in the talks, it was because of a breakthrough. And hence, it's quite cynical, from the start. This war was born in sin. It was born in sin. No international law, no UN Security Council resolution, no congressional resolution within the United States itself, and no popular support in the United States. I mean, at best, it could be somewhere between 20 and 30. Apparently, the latest figure was 21% of the American public support this war. So, unlike, for example, the 2003 war, it was illegal, but it was popular in the United States, at least in the beginning. So this war was born in sin, and it's illegal, illegitimate, this, that, and the other thing, despite what we've just heard from the American ambassador to the United Nations. The bombings, of course, is something very similar to what we've seen in the 12-day war back in June last year, in the sense that now that the Iranian defenses are down, basically destroyed, the Americans and the Israelis can bomb anywhere they want freely. Basically, they have a free hand to bomb anywhere in Iran. And the only Iranian response you have is what we've seen today, is launch those missiles. They launched against Israel and against what they perceive to be some of the American bases in the region, and they ended up bombing a good number of their Arab Gulf neighbors. So this has been a major escalation within just the past less than 24 hours. We've seen the region get engulfed. We've seen serious bombing within Iran. We see, of course, the assassination, apparently, of several dozens of major Iranian defense and political leaders within the country, and it's only the first day. So you can imagine if this is going to be more of that for days, weeks, and months to come.
Marwan Bashar, Al Jazeera senior political analyst. Thank you very much, Marwan. Now, the UN Security Council is holding an emergency meeting in response to the U.S. and Israeli strikes on Iran. Gabriel Elizondo is live with us from UN headquarters in New York. What's happening at the UN, Gabe?
Well, we're about 90 minutes into this emergency meeting, a very rare emergency meeting that's being held on a weekend here at UN headquarters in New York. We expect to hear in the next few minutes from both the ambassadors from Iran and from Israel. That should be in the next few minutes or so. So far, we've heard from the Secretary General as well as many of the Security Council members. The Secretary General saying in his remarks at the beginning of the meeting that he regrets that negotiations were squandered, making reference to the fact that there were still talks going on between the parties, and even referencing that more talks were planned in the coming days in Vienna. Secretary General also clearly condemning the United States and Israel's attacks on Iran, saying they're a clear violation of the UN Charter and international law, but also the Secretary General saying that it's a violation of the UN Charter on what Iran is doing in its response as well. Now, Iran most likely in their comments are going to frame this much differently. Iran's ambassador has said, or their foreign minister has said in a letter to the Secretary General that we received, said that Iran's response is in line with the UN Charter in terms of self-defense. Aside from the Secretary General, we also have heard from Russia, China, as well as Bahrain, which is a member of the Security Council, an elected member of the Council, clearly has a stake in this, and spoke on behalf of the Gulf Cooperation Council countries, the GCC countries, and said it rejects Iran's justifications for violating the sovereignty of several GCC countries. So this is the sense that we've been seeing here so far, but it'll be interesting to see what the Iranian ambassador has to say, as well as the Israeli ambassador, who we'll also be hearing from shortly.
Absolutely, and we will be carrying that live on Al Jazeera. Gabriel Elizondo, thank you very much. Thomas Warwick joins us now live from Washington, D.C., and Thomas is a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council, a former U.S. Department of Homeland Security Assistant Secretary for Counterterrorism Policy. I'd like to ask you what you make of the justification for this war. Donald Trump put out a speech some hours ago, just as the first strikes, U.S. strikes on Iran, were being conducted. It was an 8-minute video, and he listed absolutely every grievance that the U.S. has ever had against Iran going back 50 years, if not more. What do you make of the reasons that Donald Trump gave for starting this war?
Good evening to you and to your viewers. Ramadan Kareem to everyone. Actually, those weren't grievances. Most of those were acts of terrorism or war. And that's an important distinction. A grievance is when a country imposes a tariff that another country doesn't like or has a trade dispute. But Iran has been carrying out, either directly or through its proxy armies in other countries, numerous acts of violence against the United States and its allies. As President Trump and Ambassador Waltz just said, this goes back to the founding of the Islamic Republic in 1979. And in fact, what President Trump said and what Ambassador Waltz said very explicitly is the United States has had enough. It is not going to tolerate Iran's continued lawless behavior, and the fact that international law was doing nothing to stop Iran from carrying out these repeated violations is one of the reasons the United States felt
Thomas, I'm going to have to interrupt you. We're
justified.
going to go straight back to the United Nations Security Council.
Members of this body, in a blatant double standard, disregarded the flagrant act of aggression committed by the US and Israel on Iran and condemn Iran for using its inherent right to self-defense under UN Charter. Mr. President, this morning, the United States regime jointly and in coordination with the Israeli regime initiated an unprovoked and premeditated aggression against the Islamic Republic of Iran for the second time in the recent months, while deliberately attacking civilian populated areas in multiple large cities of Iran where millions of people reside. As a result of this brutal armed attack, hundreds of civilians have been killed and injured. The aggression and atrocious crime of the United States regime and the Israeli regime and the deliberate and persistent targeting of civilian infrastructure are going. In addition to the numerous civilian residential buildings, the aggressors have also targeted a school in the city of Minab, Hormozgan province, killing more than 100 children. The number of innocent civilians continues to rise. This is not only an act of aggression, it is a war crime and a crime against humanity. Yet today, once again, the representative of the United States, through a regrettable pattern, has attempted to distort facts and rely on misinformation to justify the blatant aggression of the United States and Israel against my country. The facts, however, are unequivocal. The justification advanced by the representative of the United States today are illegal and entirely devoid of legal foundation. The baseless allegation invoked to defend this unlawful use of force have no standing under international law. The invocation of preemptive attack claims of imminent threats or other substantiated political claims cannot legitimize aggression. Such claims are unfounded legally, morally, and politically, and they contradicted the clear principles of the Charter of the United Nations. I also categorically reject the assertion made by the representative of France, the United Kingdom, and certain other Western members regarding Iran's peaceful nuclear program. These claims lack a factual and legal basis. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the President of the United States and the Prime Minister of the Israeli regime have openly claimed responsibility for this act of aggression and have explicitly articulated regime change as their objective, an unmistakable admission of their intent to violate Iran's sovereignty and territorial integrity. The President of the United States has falsely described this aggression as necessary to neutralize an imminent threat to the American people. This is nothing more than a deliberate attempt to mislead the international community and the US public opinion and manufacture consent for unlawful war. Similarly, the representative of the United States has cynically sought to mislead this Council, yet history provides ample documentation that the foreign policy of the United States has repeatedly relied on unlawful force, covert intervention, and political manipulation to alter the governments of other member states. This record is well established. The reality is clear and undeniable. What is taking place today against my country by the United States and the terrorist regime of Israel is a blatant act of aggression, a full-fledged violation of international law. No justification, no accusation, no narrative of disinformation can legitimize or excuse this manifest crime and aggression. Mr. President, we have communicated on several occasions with this Council and the Secretary General about warmongering statements and interfering actions in the internal affairs of Iran by the President of the US in a blatant violation of the UN Charter and international law, and called for the Council action. Regrettably, all were unanswered. The issue before the Council is straightforward: whether any member state may, including a permanent member of this Council, through the use of force, coercion, or aggression, determine the political future of another state or impose control over its affairs. International law and the Charter are explicit on this matter. Article 2, Paragraph 4 of the Charter categorically prohibits the threats of use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state. Mr. President, against this backdrop, I would like to make the following points. 1. What is occurring against my country is a clear act of aggression. It is an open armed aggression against the Islamic Republic of Iran. The United States and Israel war today is not merely a war against Iran. It is a war against the Charter of the United Nations, a war against international law, and a war against the international legal order upon which the United Nations and the Security Council have been built for over 8 decades. As the Charter affirms, the United Nations was established to save succeeding generations from a scourge of war. The Charter, adopted in 1945, is founded upon this fundamental principle. Members shall refrain from threat or use of force in international relations. The sole exception is the inherent right of self-defense under Article 51, and only in the event of an armed attack. The military aggression carried out by the United States and Israel satisfies none of the criteria of lawful self-defense. Accordingly, the action of the United States and Israel constitute a manifest violation of Article 2, a peremptory norms and a fundamental principle of international law accepted by all member states. Neither the Charter nor international law recognize internal matters of states as justification for the use of force by other states. Were this otherwise, no international legal order could endure. The rule of law would be replaced by the rule of force. 2. In responding to aggression and large-scale war, the Islamic Republic of Iran is exercising its inherent and lawful right of self-defense under Article 51 of the Charter of the United Nations. The armed forces of the Islamic Republic of Iran are utilizing all the necessary defensive capabilities and means to confront this criminal aggression and deter the hostile acts. Consequently, all bases, facilities, and assets of the hostile forces in the region shall be regarded as legitimate military objective within the framework of Iran's lawful exercise of self-defense. Iran will continue to exercise its right of self-defense decisively and without hesitation until the aggression ceases in full and unequivocal terms. 3. Iran remains firmly committed to respecting the sovereignty and territorial integrity of its neighboring countries. Under no circumstances will we target the sovereignty, people, or interests of our neighboring countries in the Persian Gulf. Our legitimate response have been directed solely and exclusively at the bases and assets of the hostile government of the United States that operate beyond the control of the host states. Priority has been given to the targets that diminish the aggressor capability and capacity to continue its malign actions. We had previously and formally conveyed this warning to the Secretary General and the Security Council. 4. Despite continuous U.S. hostile policy, we were sincerely and seriously pursuing the path of diplomacy and dialogue to reach a just, fair, and sustainable agreement. Yet, for the second time in the midst of the negotiation, the United States betrayed diplomacy and resorted to force and launched an attack against my country in blatant violation of Charter of the United Nations, presently interfering in Iran's internal affairs. They are even calling on the people to riot against their own government. The recent record of the United States toward Iran is equally clear. Since January 2025, the U.S. administration reinstated the hostile approach, including the policy of so-called maximum pressure and economic strangulation through sweeping sanctions. The General Assembly has repeatedly voted by overwhelming majorities against such unilateral coercive measures. The objective of these illegal measures has been transparent, unconditional surrender. Despite repeated warning by Iran to the Secretary General and the Council regarding serious violation of the Charter by a permanent member, the Council has regrettably failed to discharge its primary responsibility, allowing the erosion of the rule of law in favor of the rule of force. 5. Just as the Israeli regime succeeded in dragging the United States into the quagmire of war with Iran, the United States, in turn, is deliberately seeking to expand the scope of the conflict by exploiting spaces in the Persian Gulf region. The hostile U.S. government dream of swallowing Iran and forcing the Islamic Republic of Iran into submission will never be realized. This war, before being a contest of military equipment and advanced technologies, is a battle of wills, and in that battle, the Islamic Republic of Iran will prevail. Furthermore, the Islamic Republic of Iran has repeatedly affirmed its commitment to diplomacy and negotiation. However, it will never submit to pressure, coercion, or force. Diplomacy has rules and principles. It cannot coexist with aggression. 6. The duty of Council members is to defend international law and specifically the Charter. They are not called upon to judge the political system of states, nor to determine whether military aggression or economic siege leads to freedom or domination. Expression of concerns and empty condemnation are not sufficient. The Council must act. Pursuant to Article 39 of the Charter, the Security Council must immediately determining the United States and Israeli regime have committed an act of aggression and demand the immediate cessation of its unlawful use of force, including any explicit or implicit threats against Iran, and require binding assurance of non-repetition. Affirm that the United States and Israeli regime bear full international responsibility for all materials and moral damage inflicted upon the infrastructure and facilities of the Islamic Republic of Iran and are obligated to provide full reparation. Let me conclude, Mr. President, with a simple and undeniable truth. Israel and the United States have attacked Iran. They have violated international law and the Charter of the United Nations. They must be held accountable. So long as this aggression continues, Iran will continue to exercise its inherent right of self-defense firmly, proportionately, and without hesitation until the aggression ends. The Security Council must act now and stop this act of aggression immediately. Silence is complicity in this crime. I thank you.
I thank the representative of the Islamic Republic of Iran for the statement, and I give the floor to the representative of Israel.
Mr. President, for 47 years, the Islamic regime in Iran has led crowds in chanting, March bar Israel, March bar America. Mr. Iravani, do you want to translate these chants? Your leaders have been chanting it for years in public events, in your parliament. March bar Israel, March bar America. They mean death to Israel, death to America. Israeli and American flags were painted on roads so they could be trampled. Our flags were burned in public squares. This is not the anger of a radical fringe. It is state-sanctioned hatred. And while those March bar chants echoed, uranium was enriched, centrifuges span, missiles were built, facilities were buried deep underground. It was never just empty rhetoric. It was preparation for action. But today, alongside our ally, the United States, we act to stop it. Israel stands before you today, having acted with the United States to confront and stop an existential threat before it became irreversible. The operation targets nuclear infrastructure, ballistic missile sites, the machinery of repression that fuels terror across our region. We did not act of impulse. We did not act of aggression. We acted out of necessity because the Iranian regime left no reasonable alternative. This joint effort will continue for as long as the threat remains. We thank President Trump and acknowledge the close cooperation between Israel and the US, which has brought the alliance between our countries to an all-time high in peace and in war. Let us be clear about what we are confronting. This regime has built nuclear weapons in blatant disregard of international law and UN resolutions. It has brutally murdered its own citizens and crushed dissent. It's happened now as we speak in cities in Iran. It has expanded missile arsenals and armed proxies across the region. It has openly declared its intention to erase Israel from the map. Now, as it faces consequences, it is launching missiles and drones across the region, endangering the UAE, where a Pakistani citizen, unfortunately, was killed. Jordan, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, Iraq. As we speak, in the last hour, a rocket targeted the city of Tel Aviv. Civilians, they don't target military bases. Civilians struck a building in Tel Aviv. An innocent woman was killed and 21 people were injured. This is a regime that destabilizes wherever it reaches. It spreads violence outward while crushing freedom at home. It is not reacting, it is expanding. It is a machinery of radicalism that does not recognize borders. Mr. President, diplomacy was exhausted. Iran was required to stop enriching uranium, stop heavy water projects, stop developing nuclear-capable missiles, and allow full inspections. Iran did none of it. Instead, it fortified its nuclear facilities so we cannot get to them, accelerated missile production, and continued to fund terror. Since the last operation in the summer, they spent billions on their proxies. The resolutions were clear. The strategy was just as clear. Delay, delay, delay. But we will not be played. And it's simple what they were planning. They were building the means to corner us, to force an irreversible reality with our backs against the wall. That is not a future Israel will accept. No responsible nation should. This operation is guided by clear objectives: eliminate immediate threats, dismantle the nuclear program, destroy its ballistic missile production, neutralize naval threats, break the proxy network that destabilizes the region. The operation was carried out in order to protect the people of Israel within the framework of the ongoing armed conflict between Israel and Iran, in line with the UN Charter and in accordance with international law. Our forces stand ready to stop extremism armed with nuclear weapons. To the soldiers of the IDF, our boys and girls, my son, my daughter, we salute you. You stand like lions defending our people. An entire nation stands behind you. We have heard the condemnation from few member states, from the Secretary General, but we all know that escalation did not begin today. It began when Iran armed proxies and exported terror, expanded missiles and drones, advanced its nuclear program in violation of its commitments, turned on its own people, beating, imprisoning, executing. Where was the outrage of the UN? Where were the consequences? Now, Israel acts to prevent an irreversible threat, and the condemnation is immediate. This is the definition of hypocrisy. Some call this aggression. We call it necessity. We call it survival. Mr. President, history has taught us never to ignore those who openly call for our destruction. When a regime says it will destroy Israel, when it chants death to Israel, when it promises to wipe Haifa and Tel Aviv off the map, we believe it. We genuinely believe it when we see those hundreds of ballistic missiles that they are launching to Israel. We believe the threats. We do not ignore them. We do not gamble with our survival. We act. Now let me address the brave people of Iran. You are not our enemies. This operation is not directed at you. It is directed at a regime that has silenced you, imprisoned you, and invested in missiles and uranium while your economy suffers. You deserve better. It is this regime, the Basij, the Revolutionary Guard, who have dragged your country into isolation. The world does not fear a free Iran. It fears a radical regime armed with nuclear weapons and driven by extremism. Your future should not be defined by those who chant for death. As President Trump has said, the Iranian people deserve dignity, security, and the chance to shape their own destiny. We are thinking about you. You are seen. You are not alone. The future of Iran belongs to its people. We stand with you. Mr. President, this week, Jewish families all around the world celebrate Purim. Many Israelis will do so now in a bomb shelter. The story of Purim happened more than 2,500 years ago, in the same place, in ancient Persia. An evil minister by the name of Haman. Last week, I stood and Israel and the US are acting together.
That have been killed or mutilated by Hamas
is going to reach an end game.
Ali Hashem, thank you very much. Now it is 2300 GMT. You're watching our continuing coverage of the joint Israeli and U.S. strikes on Iran. I'm Cyril Vanier, and here's the latest. U.S. President Donald Trump says that Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei is dead. In a Truth Social post, Trump wrote, Khamenei, one of the most evil people in history, is dead. And this is not only justice for the people of Iran, but for all great Americans that have been killed or mutilated by Khamenei and his gang. He was unable to avoid our intelligence and highly sophisticated tracking systems, and working closely with Israel, there was not a thing that he or the other leaders that have been killed along with him could do. The heavy and pinpoint bombing, however, will continue uninterrupted throughout the week, or as long as necessary to achieve our objective of peace throughout the Middle East and indeed the world. Well, we have a team of correspondents in Washington, D.C., in Tehran, in Ramallah, in the occupied West Bank, at the UN headquarters in New York, where an emergency Security Council meeting is taking place. Let's go to Mike Hanna, who is joining us now from Washington, D.C. Mike, what are you learning on your end?
Well, we heard that lengthy statement from President Trump saying that he was convinced that the Ayatollah Khamenei is indeed dead, saying as well that a large number of the Iranian leaders have also been killed in these ongoing attacks, also indicating some form of timeline, saying that the U.S. will continue its operations along with Israel as long as is necessary, also insisting that some members of the Republican Guard may be disillusioned with the leadership and may be joining civilians in the streets. But this would appear to be wishful thinking on the side of the U.S. administration at this particular point. But we do have that statement from President Trump. Earlier in the day, he'd been making similar statements to various media outlets. Now he went down on Truth Social, putting out that lengthy statement confirming that, in his view, the leader of Iran is dead.
All right, Mike Hanna reporting from the White House. Thank you very much. Tawhid Asadi now joins us live from Tehran. What are you learning where you are? What are Iranian authorities saying about this?